And welcome back to the Nerdrotic Podcast. My name is Gary Buechler. I am live in San Francisco, California. I come to you from nerdrotic.com and down, or are you still in Lake Tahoe?
I'm still in Lake Tahoe.
Still in Lake Tahoe?
Pardon the bad
Jon
background.
Reed.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I don't have my studio. I don't have my microphone, so pardon all of those things. Still traveling. Hopefully I get back on the road tomorrow and have a way cool voyage back to LA. But Gary, today we were introduced to what the darkest timeline could have been, where Michael Burnham was put into, had switched places with Spock and had been part of the original series instead of Spock. They could have had a Freaky Friday going on, and that would have been not my favorite thing. So I think we should look at this show as like counting our blessings that the original series had Spock instead of Michael Burnham. Now I can get behind some of this stuff. Like, this is the dark timeline, and let's just pray that it doesn't intersect with the good.
Yeah, I want to give this show a chance. I sit down in front of my computer and fire up my CBS All Access that I paid $5.99 for, not $9.99. I said through the commercials.
$9.99. Yeah.
$9.99.
So, I got my. I'm a Big Brother fan. I keep saying this. I know I keep saying this on this podcast, but I'm a Big Brother fan. And I just calculated, if I didn't have the non-commercial version, I binged one season of Big Brother. Let's just say I binged one season. I would have had to sit through 7.5 hours of commercials. So that $4 a month, man, I will buy the 7.5 hours back of my life any day of the week. So for me, I'm all about the no commercials version of this thing.
They would have to pay me a lot more than $9.99 to sit through that much Big Brother, but God bless you, brother. Okay. I want to give this show a fair chance. I really, really do. And
I'm past that.
Just won't let me. I'm like, the gloves are off on this episode.
Yeah,
they just went some unnecessary places.
They did.
Let's not even bury the lead. It's all Spock's fault.
Yes, everything
Spock's fault.
Sarek and Spock have ruined our lives. So I texted you halfway through the episode and I said, this might be my favorite episode. I'm scared of how it's going to end. And that fear was definitely founded because, like, I liked the Tilly trainings, stuff. Like, that was fun. Like, I felt like the writers were getting a handle on life on the Discovery, right? Like, they're training so that they can advance themselves through the Federation, through Starfleet. And Ash is really charming, and I liked this kind of oh, he's cute. Oh, I heard he killed 6 Klingons. No, that's not possible. Like, I liked that. It was cool. Like, I liked where they were going with the attitude of the show there, of the dynamics. I thought oh, great, we've got Ash now. This guy's a good actor. He's going to bring new energy to the show. And then it just spirals into this writing hole, right? They try to be really referential of the Star Trek universe with Sarek, and they try to tie it into the original timeline, even though they're going through a holodeck video game that would never have existed. And, I'm not one to get bogged down in the technology, but even that was a little too much for me. So it's why are you bothering to make a prequel when you don't want it to live within that time period, right? You want it to be more advanced, but you also set it in this time period. So the writers just have wound themselves into this knot, tie themselves into this knot. And so each episode, no matter what good stuff it gives you, it always goes to a bad place because of what the writers are trying to do with the show ultimately.
The writers have no idea what they're trying to do with this show. They're trying to patch things up. They took Brian Fuller's 1-page, 2-paragraph outline and are trying to insert dialogue into it. And I don't know, honestly, not to be insulting, I wonder how much Star Trek knowledge they have. I am not the encyclopedia of Star Trek. Okay. Our commenters
no, neither of us
are way more knowledgeable, and
which I'm so happy about. Thank you for all your comments, because we like a lot of this stuff. We like a lot of sci-fi superhero stuff. I think our knowledge gears a lot more toward the superhero comic book stuff, but we like Star Trek, right? Like this is a franchise that we're excited about typically. So we enjoy like all of the knowledge that you guys are dropping in the comments. Like keep it up, because it's our continuing learning about it. And the way I kind of think of what we do is like we're like your sportscasters, right? Like we're kind of recapping what's going on in these episodes, like a play-by-play guy might be doing during your sporting event. And like we're fans of this stuff. Like I'm a Sharks fan, but I know the Sharks aren't going to win the Stanley Cup. It doesn't mean I can't get excited about each game, even though I know that they might not have the best chances of winning. So when I go into an episode of Star Trek, I'm excited in that same way. Like, okay, maybe this is going to be the episode where the show turns around or whatever. And that's why we keep doing what we're doing. But our knowledge isn't always Star Trek oriented. Like I'm much more of an X-Men fan. So I love that we get the comments we get on these videos talking about like the specific things that we're missing in each episode. The canon, like the Star Trek canon is so vast, to be able to understand more from you guys, like where this stuff fits in is really, really interesting to me. So anyway, I just want to say, keep it up to the
Yeah,
comments.
and it's 50 years of canon, and all the books count. I have not read any of the books. I'm aware of some of them. And let's just start out with the holodeck, and we will. There's two things we will get back to later, and that is it's all Spock's fault, and
the Vulcan terrorism.
Oh yeah, that's three. The Vulcan terrorism, and is Ash Vok.
Yeah.
We will get to all of those. Are three big glaring things, but yeah, the holodeck, that's new. I'm not surprised. I actually, when I saw it, I'm like, oh, there they go. Why not at this point? Why not have a holodeck? And we can just rewrite Star Trek history. One comment that I absolutely loved that came out was like, please God, let this be the mirror universe. But I think that I'll go one step further. That kind of disrespects the mirror universe. Hopefully it's like a reflection in a puddle universe. That's kind of how I see
universe.
it right now. The puddle universe.
Yeah.
Because this took a trip to, I don't want to cuss, to S-land.
So let's talk about the holodeck for a second. I love the idea of the holodeck, right? Like the holodeck is one of those things that was, I think, started in Next Generation, right? Where they were able to go in and simulate these things, and it got more and more advanced as it went along. I love the idea of that because it's like the danger room from the X-Men, right? Or it's like, it's a real life video game. You can do whatever you want with it. And that's really how this was playing out. It was like a battle simulation, but it reminded me of like a first person shooter video game. And it was like you killed X amount of people, and they were, it's fun. But you made a prequel to Star Trek, and like I'd be able to overlook this stuff if this was the only problem, but there are so many other problems that it's like this compounded thing where now this is also bothering me more than it should, and it's like, why did you make a prequel when you wanted this whole ship to be the most technological ship we've ever seen in Star Trek? So it's just weird. It's just weird decision making. But the holodeck is cool, right? Like if you take out the fact that this is supposed to happen before the original series, the sequence they had with the holodeck was fun. Like that was maybe the most fun sequence we've had on the show, aside from maybe the like simulation that Lorca was running at the beginning of the last episode. So, it's like if you take it outside of that, it's fun stuff. It's just like, then don't set it at that time period. Make it like after Next Generation or something. I don't know.
Well, I can't believe that they don't. These are conscious decisions, and they know, or maybe they don't know, that these are going to piss off Star Trek fans, and maybe that's what they're trying to do. Maybe they're trying to like clean the slate and new Star Trek fans. I don't know what the logic is behind that, but that's what they're doing now. I don't want to. It's not split down the middle. I know there's on our videos and others. I've never seen so many likes and dislikes, and it started out pretty much 50-50, but as time has been going on, and again, it's not just on our video, it's other videos too, it's been growing. The people who are crapping on the show, the likes are going up, the dislikes are going down.
So when we're negative, we get more likes on this show. And when we're positive, people call us out on why we're being positive more than the other way around. So like the 50-50 has probably gone down to like 70-30. And I think that I think it's funny that you guys are all watching us. Maybe you're hate watching the show with us. I don't know. I'm still like, I'm still hoping that there's a course correction because we're only 6 episodes in, but we're 6 episodes in. Like I don't. I'm starting to.
No,
That hope is quickly leaving me.
it's gone. I mean, you can't come out and say, "Well, you haven't seen it," or "You guys." I mean, it's still with me. I don't. I'm getting close to hating it. I think by next episode it'll be hate watching. Right now, it's thoroughly disliking watching.
No, Inhumans was hate watching. This is definitely like, you know,
But
yeah.
yeah, it's going to get into apathetic, which is really what you don't want. At least when somebody dislikes something, they still have a passion for it. It's a form of love.
Gary texted me at the Vulcan. Let's get into the Vulcan terrorism. But Gary texted me when the Vulcan suicide bombed Sarek's ship or whatever happened there, and and he's like, "Oh, this is all. I hate this." And I was just like, I don't even care anymore. Like, fine, that Vulcan just blew up the ship. What's gonna happen next on this show? Like, I've gone a little bit further, I think, down the just like, this is a shit show, and I'm gonna comment on the shit show, but I'm not going to get all up in arms because, as far as I'm concerned, this isn't really a Star Trek show anymore. I've divorced it for me.
Logic extremists.
Yeah, logical
Let's just think about
extremism.
that for a second. Logic extremists. Ooh, okay. Yeah, that says it. I don't get that. I could see there being a Vulcan sect that is very well, the majority of them being anti-human, but I can't see them blowing stuff up. They would just ostracize
They would debate.
Sarek. They would debate, they would banish, they would shun, but they would not blow themselves up.
And at no point did we get like a logical argument for why he did what he did, right? Like, Vulcanism has always been about the logic. It's been about like, you have to go down this logical path to get to this end result, and that's what we're fighting for, like logic and reason. And so when that happened, a very unreasonable act, there was never an explanation of why it was a logical act. And so it was kind of like, well, this was a shock, like, this will get people talking, I guess. Like, is that the point of every scene of the show, is to try to get people up in arms about something? Because this will work. Like, people are not going to, we're not happy like about Vulcan terrorism, but they've done too many of those at this point too. I think people are just like, whatever, these people don't know what they're doing. So
no, that's just one of those things that's going to make Star Trek fans who still care head explode. Now, if you want to study the Vulcan being an ethno state and being big superior, they like think eugenic. That's a great argument to have and a great episode in these modern times. I would love to see that explored. Axanar, and again, I'm not going to say Axanar invented this. I don't know the lore behind from the books or anything from the canon about the Klingon War, but I know in Axanar the Vulcans don't want to be part of the Federation. All right, and that's kind of.
So this is ripped right out of that.
This is ripped right out of Axanar,
but done very poorly.
Very poorly. Again, if you haven't seen Axanar, go watch that. It's really
maybe good. You know what? Maybe in the middle of this season we'll do like a review of Axanar. Like, we'll do a recap to cleanse the palate a little bit and to get to something that we like. Like, I think that's what we should do. We should take a little time one of these days to do a recap there, so we can talk about something that we think is done well and talk about that a little bit. Because I am getting a little sick of this show throwing a bunch of things that I'm supposed to, like, what do they expect us to say on a show? Like, if we're recapping it, or if people are talking about what they think about Star Trek, like, do they think we're going to be like, oh yeah, I loved it when that Vulcan suicide bombed a ship? Like, no, like, nobody's going to say that. And so, like, I do want to watch really something powerful. Where, like, yeah, I want to watch something where it's like, oh, I love that this movie is digging into these Star Trek things. And so I think we should talk about Axanar.
And what was he shooting them up with? Extremis? I mean, like, it looked like Iron Man 3 going on.
Because that movie was really well received by the fan base as well.
I know. Well, that's something I like. And largely, like I said before, we're when it comes to recaps, maybe not our podcast, but our recaps, we're generally pretty positive.
We try to be.
But I do not fear conflict. I will crap on this, and I will continue to do so, because You asked for it, especially when you came out with I dare Star Trek fans to not subscribe, Jason Isaacs. You know, when you come out with statements like that, it's like, all right, bring it out. You get what you deserve at this point.
So,
I don't understand. Real quick, I want to. It's a marketing decision that seems to be a trend of late, which is insulting fans or daring fans. How about what happened to? Hey, why don't you just give us a chance?
yeah.
Why don't you just watch it, give us a chance, and that's all you need to say. You don't need to take it personally. If people, especially in this world, this is something you're going to have to deal with when you make entertainment now. You're going to have to deal with people hating stuff before they see it. I mean, it sucks, but that's the world we live in. And there is a way to charm people over. And again, with these weird conscious decisions to go against all the Star Trek canon, which you didn't need to do. I mean, it was like you're sabotaging this thing from the beginning. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
No,
don't know, John.
it does. Hey, look, man, you're gonna be proved out right on this. I thought that they were producing something like my original thought before the series landed was that they thought they had something good on their hands and they wanted to drive this Star Trek show to give them subscribers on CBS All Access, which ended up happening, but for the wrong reasons. And that I didn't think that they were trying to sabotage or that they were unhappy with the product, but I don't know how a studio could be happy with this product. So I do think now maybe they're burying it on All Access, and that's why it's there instead of the other thing.
Yeah. I mean, we could just go down the line. Let's talk about when so they have to go on a mission to save Sarek, who the ship blew itself up and he's dying on the floor of his ship, and he's still connected to Michael through the mind meld, and it's the Katra. And so like Michael has like a space force, but it's just with Sarek, and she's meeting Ash Tyler for the first time in the commissary. She's got her little what's the disco shirt? What was that all about? Was that
I don't know.
acronym for something or whatever? So she falls down, and she goes into Sarek's mind, and his dying thoughts have not Spock, his blood son is about a feeling of guilt with his adoptive daughter, which is cool. You know, you want to treat both kids the same. I have an adopted kid and I have another kid who was birthed naturally, you know, and I love them both the same, and that's cool. That's cool that he went there. But we find out in this very vivid mind meld that when he's talking to his wife, and she was saying that Michael had all better test scores than the Vulcans. And I'm sorry, I'm very animated right now. I'm about to jump out of my seat. Okay, this show fired me up tonight. Okay, sorry. And she had better test scores than any Vulcan, but still the Vulcans won't let her in. And then we find out later on through, you know, they go back. That's the weird thing, is they go back and forth between other scenes while these mind melds are happening. And you know, Lorca sends out Michael on this away mission on a shuttle into a nebula against orders, and they can't see anything. So they send the POW, the mutineer, and Tilly, who might not be the best, you know, person in a stressful situation, to go save Sarek, who is on his way to a peace mission with the Klingons. And while Lorca sends them out, this is my favorite part. Lorca decides the Admiral comes to visit him, and they get laid, and he gets laid while Michael Burnham's on this important away mission to get the peace ambassador for the goddamn war.
Yeah,
Decides to get a little something from the Admiral. Now,
well, it was his way of supposedly manipulating her. I loved that they were talking about, I don't know, the war or whatever, his like mental imbalance, and there's like porn music playing in the background the whole time. Like, go back and watch that scene, because I was sitting there like they're having this really like serious conversation about his like mental state, and yet it's like the porn music just blaring in the background.
Little Al Green in the background.
It was crazy. Yeah. I thought it was interesting. I guess they're trying to show us this dynamic between the Admiral and Lorca, that they have this history, and now it's somehow different.
Fine. That was actually that excuse me, that was one of the good scenes in this is despite the ridiculousness of Lorca not paying attention to a away mission, and maybe he's trying to distract her from what is actually going on. That I consider that a possibility, and we're humanizing Lorca a little bit, but
Yeah.
I could tell it was a total setup. All right, let's you don't.
This is so fun. Hold on. There's a comment I wanted to bring up. Langley M. Neely says the entirety of Star Trek 3 is about how the Federation knows nothing about Vulcan Contras, but 30 years earlier they have tech to make Sarek vision. Like, yeah, agreed. That
looks like
that's
board tech, by the way. It looks a little
yeah.
boardish.
It does look board.
Oh, that's one of the things
In a
I had
nutshell,
noted
that's a
down
problem.
was again, correct me if I'm wrong, Trekkers, but I thought the Vulcan arts, the logic, their fighting style, mind melds and stuff. I thought that had to do partially with their physiology. Okay, I just didn't think a human could just like a mind meld could. Like a Vulcan could mind meld with a human, but a human couldn't mind meld with a Vulcan. Or is it something taught? I don't. That's a question I don't have the answer to. I always thought it was you had to be Vulcan to do that stuff, but maybe I'm wrong. And Michael did it better than everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So there you go.
He's the best
Yeah.
Vulcan, apparently.
Yep. No. I won't say the name, but it rhymes with Barry Dew. Yep. So with the Lorca stuff, I find him to be the most interesting character, conflicted character.
I want to know what effed him up more. I want to know more about what's made him a little bit crazy.
That's a flashback I would have liked to have seen, like him blowing up his ship, and that'd have been a powerful scene. And Jason Isaacs is a great actor. I mean, he kind of does the same thing over and over again, but he does it good. He's a good villain, So
the scene that really bothered me the most was after they, long story short, she goes back into the mind meld and realizes that she's unable to help him because he's resisting her to go into his mind, and they realize he's conflicted about something. He's not upset about something, and she helps him through the conflict, and then they save him. They get him back, he's recuperating, and she has a discussion with him about that. And it's like her time to be like empathetic toward her dad, because they've just gone through this thing and resolved something. And instead, she's like got like unfinished business and walks away with like a smirk on her face. And the whole time I was watching that scene, I was like, what's the point of this? Like, if this seemed like a journey where they were going to connect, right? Where it was going to be about her coming to terms with the fact that she was forced down a path maybe she was not suited for or didn't choose because he forced her down that path, and it was them kind of resolving that conflict and her being like, I'm okay in the place I am at now, and like I understand why you did what you did, but I wish that maybe you'd given us both a chance, like working through those issues was what I thought this was about. And instead she's like, fuck you, dad, and like walks away. And I'm like,
yeah,
what is going on?
Oh my God. Yeah, that's and she does at the end of the episode, sorry, we're jumping around, kind of come to terms with that, but she doesn't do it with him. She had to get the last word in, the smirk. She had to be right. And let's jump all the way to the first part of the episode when Tilly and her are running, and Tilly talks about, the people who don't say personality matters usually don't have a personality. I'm not saying you don't have a personality. And again, that's another one of those almost meta moments in this thing where that's part of the
she is the viewer at the moment.
She is the
main character has no personality.
Yeah. And yeah, that bothered me. I mean, almost as much as everything being Spock's fault. And the first time you mention Spock in this series, he replaced her. She was clearly better, and he chose Spock over her. And you know what? I can buy the fact that he feels bad about the decision, and he would be thinking about that when he was dying. That's actually something I can totally buy. The fact, but that just emphasizes the fact is like, and again, we're going to get into the same complaint, is she is obviously this really important character. God, you couldn't have found a way to find somebody they've referred to in the past in the books or something, instead of just bringing this character out of nowhere. It just makes no sense. This was such a dumb decision. And
shoehorning her in
You
Yeah.
could have done all this stuff without Sarek. You didn't
It
need
should
to
have been
have
done with
Sarek.
Sarek.
It could
Yeah,
have
no,
been another Vulcan.
and that would have made, like, let's say that this is all really important stuff going on, but we find out that it's all redacted because Discovery is this like really before its time ship or whatever. Like that would have made a whole lot more sense than like she's Spock's sister and this is her story before the show kicked off, right? And that's, I think, again, all of these little things on their own aren't necessarily like the word, right? Like all of these things on their own would be like things I don't like, but I can get over in a good television show.
Yep.
The problem is that we're not given like a great television show. So all these little things kind of snowball into like this just disaster. And I'm waiting for like an episode to have enough good to outweigh the bad. Like that's literally, that's where my bar has dropped on this show, is like, give me something I can say I enjoyed so I can overlook all this other stuff. But it's not, we're not really getting that, right? We're getting
Yeah.
like a mediocre show with all of these problems compounding it.
So the good, the one thing I did like, and it's the same thing I liked last episode, was Ash Tyler.
Yeah, Ash, the actor is bringing a lot to that role.
Yes, he's doing a good job. It's an interesting character, and the running theory out there is Ash is a Kling. Should I spoiler warning a little bit? But we assume you watched the show. There's a theory out there. Don't know if it's true or not. That you can poke holes into, by the way, because it's actually a different actor. That Vok, who was the like the albino Klingon who took over for the unforgettable, and
The unforgettable, forgettable Carvac or whatever.
forgettable guy, and was banished on a ship where they had where the Klingon War started. That's him in disguise. And I guess he's using some sort of hologram thing, kind of like they used. And this is where I start mixing up the Orville with
Yeah.
Discovery, because they did that with the Krill, the episode before, where he had the hologram around himself. So he must have learned human mannerisms. There's a lot of holes you can poke in that argument.
Actually,
it's not the same actor, but
Langley
there are
says,
similarities.
one of our commenters does say, actually, the IMDb actor for Vok is a fake name. It's a suit. It's a
well, there you go. It could be it. I was thinking more.
Thanks, Langley. You're
Tonight, and that could be it. Thank you very much. By the way, there was, and I guess he had a black eye, and that was the same injury that Vok had. That was pointed out. So it definitely could be it. But I think it could also be the kind of like a Homeland situation, where you ever see Homeland out there, everybody, where they could have just turned him, or it's an actual officer who they just turned. And that would be, I think it would be better if they had just brainwashed the guy enough, or actually, convinced him. Because in Homeland, there's a character who is a Marine, I believe it is, gets caught and tortured over years and years and years, and converts to Islam, and comes in and comes back a terrorist. So maybe they're gonna do. Yeah. Well, sorry. Well, that was like years ago. Sorry if you haven't seen Homeland. It's based on an Israeli show, I believe, and I think that would be a little better. The whole hologram thing, again, like, I'm over it bugging me. They've obviously, Spore Drive, holograms, like, wow, something really bad must have happened to the Federation for them to digress so much before Kirk showed up. But
I think the only explanation for this is like the Discovery does so many horrific things that they kind of relegate it to the sideline and never like make use of all
it.
Yeah, they
redact everything. Maybe they pull a Rogue One. Remember, this was supposed to be an anthology series. They were supposed to like do different stuff.
Yep.
I don't know, every episode, but every season. And
no, it's supposed to be every season.
And maybe that's where we're at. And maybe it goes all Rogue One again. Spoiler warning. Rogue One, and everybody dies at the end of this season.
I GD hope so. I really, really hope that like this is Discovery, and then at the end of the season it's over, and then they get some people who actually care about Star Trek to come on and make another season of a good Star Trek show that takes place in a different time next season.
Yeah.
I hope that this does not continue. I don't necessarily. They're not going to cancel it. They've already produced all the episodes, and they have the subscriptions coming in for CBS All Access that they're happy with it, right? Like it's a
Oh
success
yeah.
for them. But from a like a show point of view, I my guess is that the disaster that was producing the show, the fact that they couldn't get their stars to show up consistently, that they had to keep delaying it, that they had directors and producers and showrunners drop off the project several times. I think that all of that is probably going to allow CBS to look at this and say, okay, we had success in giving us a Star Trek show that brought subscriptions. Now let's get a real team together for an ongoing show that's not this. I hope that that's how they look at it. I don't know though. They make weird decisions all the
They
time.
do. And another thing we forgot, I can't believe we forgot to mention this last podcast. Now, I'm finally getting to it,
Yeah.
was the dropping the F bomb twice, 3 times in Star Trek. And it was just so they could say, hey, we were the first to do it. And that was, I mean, like that was terrible. And what was worse is some actually more offensive to me is somebody going way cool in this episode. It's like,
Yeah.
it's self-referential. Everything has to be, I don't know, everything has to be tied into, I mean, like this shouldn't be tied into our times. It should be timeless. I'm a huge proponent of kind of everything being timeless, unless it's like a Mr. Robot or something like that. So you can watch it in 10 years and don't feel like I'm, and no, I know Star Trek Next Generation is completely guilty of this and everything, but it still was just, it was terrible. And they were just so proud of themselves. Like, we were the first ones to say the F word in Star Trek. We're so sophisticated, and edgy, it's like, come on. Like, you think by the, especially science officers on a ship 300 years in the future, they would be beyond that. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the writing. It's funny because it's not only like a dialogue problem; it's like a story. It's a story problem. So you've got like usually you can be like, okay, the dialogue wasn't great, but I like where they're going with it, or I don't love the story, but the dialogue is good. Like usually there's something you can look at and say like, I understand why these writers have a job. Um, I don't think I can with this show. I don't know why these writers have a job. Just because like it's just a mess. It's just a huge mess. It doesn't. It's not a good Star Trek show. It's not a good TV show. It's not a good sci-fi show. It's lost me really. There are times where I feel like if they cut out half of each episode, you could cobble together something, right? Like I like the Tilly Michael dynamic sometimes. I like Stamets sometimes. I think that he's a compelling character. I like Lorca as a character and as an actor. As I've said, I really like this Ash character. The problem is that the characters aren't saying things that are good and aren't doing things that are good. So it's like you can only have good characters for so long before you have to actually have them do and say things. So that's the problem.
I feel like a logic extremist watching this show, and I'm not about logic at all. So dude, let's talk about the ending real quick. Okay. Cause again, I do find the Lorca stuff interesting.
Compelling.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, not good, but it's like
there's something there.
In
Yeah,
a pile
for sure.
of crap, there's something nice. And I want to follow that more. And did he set up the Admiral? I mean, it looks, the circumstances presented itself, and it was very lucky for him that Sarek got injured, and now the Admiral is going to the peace talks in Sarek's place without talking to the Klingons or the people who were supposed to, or the beings who were mediating this thing. They just decided to show up with an Admiral. That is just bad. I mean, that's beyond bad.
Bad strategic planning, for sure.
Yeah, and bad writing. And Starfleet has no business winning this war. The Klingons should absolutely destroy the Federation and conquer.
Hey, they're doing it so far. I mean, they're pretty successful so far. Yeah, this trap screamed trap, but Lorca's very apathetic to the fact that it was a trap, almost as if he knew it would be a trap. So I like this. This captain who will basically do anything. He's crazy. I like the ending to this episode. Where do you think it goes?
He's pretty irredeemable. If he did set this up, well, okay, there's the gray area of like he didn't set the thing up, but he knew. So I would kind of like, while I'm starting to like Lorca, that's pretty much an irredeemable move. And so now I don't like Lorca. And now I don't, now I'm going to like Ash, who is probably going to betray everybody. So is this kind of like the Inhumans? So I'm rooting for Maximus and I'm rooting for the Klingons at this point. I mean, I don't know.
Klingon pride. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to be rooting for, what I'm actually rooting for anymore.
For the Orville.
Yeah, I'm rooting for the Orville.
Rooting for. I didn't watch last week's episode.
Me neither. I need to watch this week's episode. Me too. I like I said, I think we should recap Axanar. I think we should have some fun for a period of time.
Yeah. And we're going to continue with this. I'm in for the long haul. We could be rocked, and maybe they changed out the writers after the 6th episode, and we don't know it yet. I don't.
We're going to say that after every single recap.
We are, but we only have 3 left to go.
Yeah, we only have 3 left to go.
We can do it.
Yeah, there have been some shows lately where we didn't like how they started, and then we really liked how they ended. For example, neither of us loved the beginning of American Gods, but the second half of that season was fantastic. And neither of us were big. I was never a big fan of Legion, but you really love how that show turned out. So, there are shows that our opinions of them change as the show evolves. So there was no Orville this week. That's why we missed it.
That's why. Then I didn't miss anything. That's great. Yeah, and I'm not a Star Trek fanatic anymore. I was.
Oh no! Is it supposed to be 15 episodes? Hold on. Let's fact check.
Yeah, but they're doing a split. So it's not coming back till January. So they're going to do I believe 9 episodes until the end of November and right before Thanksgiving, and then it's taking a break, and then it comes back the end of January.
Great.
So come back and do that too. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm excited that it breaks at the time it does, because we're going to be covering The Punisher right around that time. We're going to have Runaways right around that time. So I bet you those are going to be shows that we can dig in and have some fun with. And maybe the show will be
Stranger Things too.
Oh, and Stranger Things. Yeah.
Stranger Things is coming in like 5
days. You and
days,
Dennis will be covering that. Yeah.
And The Punisher. And those Netflix ones, I still don't know how to do those though. I guess we just kind of do every episode, but we just do them whenever. I don't know. It seems like everybody there's a certain group who binge watches everything over the weekend. Those are the hardcore fans like us. And then there's like normal people who like will watch the first couple 3, and then like 2 months they take to take the because they have lives, and that's good. That's good. I have one too. I'm just ignoring my family to do this stuff. For you guys. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
I just ignore everybody.
Yeah. And you're a newlywed.
Yeah, exactly. I just got married. I'm, sitting up here.
Dedication or something else.
So, I mean, I think that's pretty much all we have for this week. I don't think there's much more to really dig into.
There's the scenes for next week where
So if you guys have any questions for us to address in the chat, let us know if there's anything we can answer. We'll talk about the scenes for next week, and then and then we'll see if there's any questions. If there are, we'll address them. If there aren't any that we can address, we'll just go from there. So what did you think of the scenes for next week, Gary?
It looks better. I only watched them once, and it looked like there's a big creature spaceship thing, and they're trapped in a loop. So it made me think of the first episode of Battlestar Galactica, where they had 30 minutes, right? So they're trapped in a 30-minute loop, and there's a time distortion thing, which we saw coming. And also this episode, they had that big, cliffhanger from last week about the possibly the mirror universe, which I saw all your comments, and I agree. I hope they don't think the mirror universe takes place in an actual mirror, but no mention of it or hint of it at all this episode, because I did like that ending. I thought that was kind of cool, even though they went literal on the mirror universe thing. So I don't know. I like timey-wimey stuff. Bit of a Doctor Who fan, so hey. Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it, but I couldn't really tell what was going on other than there was like a beast or something on the bridge, and was it a ship?
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I need to watch it again.
I am wondering, are we supposed to be shipping Ash? Are we supposed to be shipping MASH? Michael and Ash. It looks like they're gonna kiss or something in the next episode. I don't know.
Really?
Interesting.
I didn't see her having a relationship. I think relationships are too trivial for Michael Burnham. I don't know. She's a very serious person. Especially at the end there when she realized Ash is cool when Ash compliments her for the 18th time. He's like, okay, he's okay because he's really into me. So I'll shake his hand. I don't know.
Yep.
That's what I got off.
Yeah, no, I think in the scenes there was like a shot of them having a,
I saw, I saw two people. Because should we be shipping them? That would be interesting. I like Ash. And maybe they're they're doing a 1-2 on us, and they're just trying to make us think that he's Vok, and he actually isn't. That's a definite possibility. And because I think he'll grow to be a popular character. And if you then turned him into the Klingon, that you took your most popular character and made him a bad guy. So I don't know.
Yeah, I believe that is within the bounds of what this show has been so far.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to be covering The Gifted tomorrow after the episode. You guys are still covering Mr. Robot on Wednesdays. We have our Nerdrotic news show that we'll be putting together later this week. And please stay tuned for all of the coverage of a lot of these binging shows. We've got Stranger Things, The Punisher, and Runaways all within the next month and a half or so. So stay tuned for all those things. Please head over to facebook.com/Nerdrotic podcast, hit like there, and you'll get all of our updates. Subscribe on YouTube if you already haven't. We cover a lot more than STD. So if you're not enjoying our points of view out here, that's fine. No one has to agree on everything, but we are covering a lot of other things that we're more positive about. So check out those if you're more inclined to watch us.
I'm reading the comments.
Yeah, reap praise on things instead of talk about what we're not digging. Also, if you would just want to listen to us, you don't want to watch the videos, you can find us on the iTunes podcast app. And all of our content is over at www.nerdrotic.com. So you can check it all out there. Yeah, any final thoughts before we go?
Somebody commented, they said, no need to apologize, but I don't understand the hate for the show. Now, if you had not maybe just seen a couple episodes of Star Trek or not seen it, I could see you being into the show. I could. I'm spoiled because I've seen Star Trek, but I think most of the world has. And yes, DS9 does rock. That's actually a show I didn't like at first, and then I kind of came around. See, because I could come around on stuff.
Yes,
I can. And I actually, when I first watched DS9, I didn't like it. I went back and watched it a few years later and fell in love. So, yeah. Can it happen here? I don't know. New Trek.
As far as Jay Carson, this episode, I have a message that is on that I messaged to Gary that said, I think this is my favorite episode. And then I just didn't like how the episode ended. So there were things that I did like. It just felt like the episode kind of spiraled after that. And yeah, I just didn't love that scene, like particularly the scene between Sarek and Michael where she kind of turned her back on him. I felt like that was the wrong thing to like. It kind of unvalidated a lot of the things that I liked about the episode. So.
If you just take away, you're trying to elevate Michael by disrespecting Spock. That's the way I come off it. Maybe it doesn't come off that way. That's the way I'm seeing it. If you're not trying to elevate characters by making other ones look bad, I generally don't have a problem with this show. The effects are really good.
Yeah, it looks good.
It does look very pretty. And John and I are on record of saying that, like, the technology stuff, other than the holodeck being I don't have a problem with it.
We know that you need to make a good-looking show for a modern audience. Like, I'm not bothered by the fact that they want the show to look as good as possible, honestly. Like, I'm not going to hold that against them. The holodeck drive,
yeah, the spore drive could get explained, like we said later on. It could be redacted, or it turns out that, like, when you fly around in a ship with the spore drive, it kills you over time or something, or
that would be nice,
your reality or whatever.
Yeah, something.
Killing me.
Exactly.
All right, man.
There's a spore STD. That's what this show has been telling us.
Yeah, and just being STD, you never had a chance when you.
Yeah, you called your show STD.
You called your show STD.
Thing. Anyway, you want to take us out, Gary?
May the small folks sing songs of greatness. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Awesome. Bye, everybody. We'll see you next week. And
next
we'll
week.
try to do Axonar. I think that would be fun to do.
Yeah.
Talk about something.
Yeah. And I'll be reading your comments tonight. And responding. So bye-bye.
Take care, guys.